This is the Daintree, a pristine primeval wilderness on the edge of the world, where an unbroken lineage of life has quietly endured for over 130 million years. Hidden within these ancient ferns sits a living relic of Gondwana, the Southern Cassowary. To survive this humid isolation, this giant flightless avian must navigate lethal predators and territorial margins. But as the overcast daylight systematically fades, an inevitable nocturnal shift will force this prehistoric survivor into a direct, unseen confrontation for absolute dominance. The rainforest that wakes before the footstep. Before the Southern Cassowary appears, the Daintree is already working. At 5 o'clock, the northeastern coast of Australia lies under a low, wet darkness. This rainforest belongs to the wet tropics of Queensland, a World Heritage landscape covering about 894,420 hectares and stretching for roughly 450 kilometers along the coast. Within that green corridor, the Daintree holds one of its most ancient northern strongholds, a living Gondwana relic where rainforest lineages have persisted since the age when Australia was still connected to the southern supercontinent. Here, the forest does something rare. It descends from the mountains and reaches almost directly toward the Coral Sea. Above Cape Tribulation, Mount Sorrow is still hidden in clouds. Below it, the canopy holds the night's last moisture like a living roof. The reef lies beyond the shoreline, but before the ocean can be seen, the rainforest announces itself through humidity. The first movement is not an animal, it is water. Fog slides through the upper branches, breaks into droplets, and falls through layers of palm, fern, bark, and vine. On the forest floor, the giant fronds of king ferns collect the moisture. These ferns belong to ancient plant lineages that make the wet tropics one of the closest living echoes of Gondwanan rainforest. Ribbed idiot fruit seeds sit half buried among wet stones, too large for most animals, too chemically defended to be treated like ordinary fruit. That sound is small, but in this forest, small things set the rhythm. A peppermint stick. Insect sways on a fallen branch. It is not simply being moved by the breeze. It is borrowing the motion of the forest to disappear inside it. Nearby, a Boyd's forest dragon remains locked beneath a fern frond, its spiked profile broken into the same jagged shapes as bark, stem, and shadow. Around them, the forest is not still. It is coordinated. Mist moves, water drops, insects hide by moving exactly as plants move. Higher in the canopy, the night shift is ending. Spectacled flying foxes hang from the upper branches after feeding through the dark on rainforest fruit, nectar, and pollen. With a wingspan that can reach around 1.2 meters, they are large enough to cross canopy gaps that smaller animals never attempt. Flying foxes depend on vision, smell, memory, and remembered feeding routes. During the night, they carry pollen and seeds between trees. At dawn, they fold their wings and become part of the canopy's dark architecture. Closer to the trunks, a white-lipped tree frog holds its position in the damp air. It can grow to about 14 centimeters, making it Australia's largest native frog. Its skin must remain wet enough to exchange water and gases with the world around it. In this hour, fog is not the atmosphere alone. It is protection. On a broadleaf, the Hercules moth waits without feeding. As an adult, it has no functioning mouthparts. Its body runs on energy stored from its larval life. Large wings make it spectacular, but also vulnerable. Daylight will turn it into a target unless it stays motionless and becomes another dead leaf in the green gloom. Then the forest floor changes weight. Inside the cavern of a strangler fig root system, a shadow separates from the darkness. A scaled foot presses into wet leaf litter. Water rolls from a black inner claw. Only now does the giant enter. The Southern Cassowary steps out beneath the roots, not into an empty world, but into a living order already running beneath every leaf. Anatomy of a rainforest survivor. It enters like weight entering a machine. Every step meets resistance. Buttress roots rise like wooden walls. Wait-a-while vines hang with backward-facing hooks. Fallen fronds hide wet stones, rotting fruit, sharp stems, and pockets of mud that can swallow a careless foot. As the maze opens toward the coast, the ground becomes less certain. The roots give way to a coastal mangrove labyrinth where freshwater, saltwater, mud, and shadow overlap. Here, the cassowary enters an estuarine predator matrix shaped by tides, unstable sediment, and the hidden presence of the saltwater crocodile. At full size, a southern cassowary can stand close to 2 meters tall. A large female may reach about 76 kilograms, heavier than many people, while males are smaller, often up to about 55 kilograms. But mass alone would fail here. In this forest, height must fold under branches, weight must cross unstable ground, and speed must pass through vegetation without breaking the animal that carries it. The first tool is the head. Rising from the skull is the keratinous cranial casque, the helmet-like structure that makes the cassowary look as if it has stepped out of another age. It is not a solid bone. Its interior is spongy, covered by keratin, the same hard material found in claws and fingernails. Scientists still debate its full purpose. It may signal age or dominance. It may help protect the head as the bird pushes through dense thickets. It may even play a role in how low-frequency sounds move through the forest. Here, under the dripping canopy, that uncertainty makes it more powerful. The cask is not a decoration. It is possibly shaped by pressure. In open air, they would be useless for lift. In the understory, they become armor against thorns, wet bark, and the constant abrasion of leaves. This is prehistoric avian morphology with a practical purpose. The cassowary is flightless, not because it is incomplete, but because this Gondwana relic did not demand wings. It demanded legs. Those legs are thick, muscular, and covered with hard, scale-like skin. Each foot has 3 toes, spreading the bird's weight across mud and leaf litter. On the inner toe is the weapon that changes the meaning of every footprint, a dagger-shaped claw that can reach up to 120 millimeters. In the morning calm, it is used quietly. It grips wet soil. It presses into leaves. It gives the bird purchase where the ground is slick and unstable. But the same claw will matter later, when the forest no longer asks the cassowary to walk, but to fight. Around its feet, the micro-world adjusts. A giant bull ant halts on a fallen seed. A peppermint stick insect rocks harder with the disturbed air. Water slides from a crushed fern rib. Beneath the leaf litter, termites and beetles continue their hidden labor. The cassowary passes over them like weather, immense, brief, and impossible to stop. The diurnal biological cycle has begun. The bird is no longer emerging from the forest. It is reading it, root by root, shadow by shadow, gap by gap. The living map of seeds. Behind it, the mud and mangroves hold their dangers. Ahead, the forest offers a different kind of test, not speed, not balance, but memory. The cassowary does not wander at random. It moves through the Gondwana relic as if following routes written into the ground. A creek crossing remembered from earlier seasons, a fig root used for cover, a fruiting tree visited when the canopy begins to drop its heavy crop. The bird stops where fallen fruit has gathered in the leaf litter. Here the forest floor is not empty debris. It is the feeding table of the rainforest. Fruit falls from branches too high for most ground animals to reach. Rain softens the skin. Ants test the edges. Beetles move beneath the pulp. Fungal threads begin their slow work through the damp matter. Then the cassowary lowers its head and swallows the fruit whole. For 10 seconds, the forest seems to lose its insects. Only one sound remains: the deep, hollow, muscular gulp of a massive bird forcing an entire rainforest fruit down its throat. It is a strange survival strategy. Many fallen fruits in this forest are too large, too fibrous, or too chemically defended for smaller animals to process safely. But the Southern Cassowary does not need to tear them apart, it takes them whole. The soft flesh becomes energy, the harder seeds remain protected, moving through the body instead of being crushed beneath it. This is where its role changes. It becomes a keystone frugivore, one of the few animals large enough to consume and transport the biggest rainforest fruits without destroying many of their seeds. Inside the bird's digestive tract, the soft flesh is broken down for energy, but the harder seeds can pass through intact. Hours later, they may fall far from the parent tree, wrapped in waste that gives them a better start in the dark soil. Above, the canopy has its own feeders. Lumholtz's tree kangaroo, an extant macropod reshaped for life in trees, grips a branch with powerful forelimbs and pulls leaves toward its mouth. It belongs to the vertical forest, while the cassowary controls the floor below. Between them, the rainforest is being eaten, processed, and renewed at different heights. On a lower trunk, a Boyd's forest dragon remains motionless, trusting bark-colored skin and broken outlines. Near the roots, a lace monitor samples the air with a forked tongue, reading chemical traces from rotting wood, hidden insects, and old nests. Nothing here feeds alone. Every mouthful changes the options for another species. At the cassowary's feet, the micro-world receives the leftovers. Giant bull ants drag fragments across moss. Detritivore beetles churn the wet litter. Fungal spores rise from broken fruit skin. A seed pressed into the mud becomes part of a future the bird will never see. The cassowary moves on. Behind it, in the dim green silence, the forest begins again. The heat that makes every creature choose The Southern Cassowary has carried the forest forward, but by late morning, the Daintree tropical rainforest begins to close around it. Not with claws, not with teeth, with heat. The air thickens first beneath the canopy, where the wind can no longer reach easily. Ferns stop dripping, bark stays wet, but no longer feels cool. The cassowary slows beneath the giant fronds. Each step from a bird weighing more than 50 kilograms creates heat inside the muscles. But birds cannot cool themselves by sweating. The cassowary opens its beak and begins gular fluttering, rapidly moving the tissues of the throat to force evaporation across moist surfaces. The blue and red skin of its neck and wattles becomes more than color. It becomes exposed radiator space, where blood can release warmth outside the heavy black plumage. Around it, the diurnal biological cycle contracts. A spotted-tailed quoll, mainland Australia's largest carnivorous marsupial, abandons active hunting and presses its spotted body against a rotting log. It is built to kill smaller mammals, birds, reptiles and insects, yet in this heat, even a predator must become flat, still and economical. Lower in the roots, a scrub python coils in deep shade. Australia's largest snake can exceed 5 meters in reliable records, but size offers no freedom from temperature. It waits for the forest to become usable again. Only the soundscape grows stronger. Male cicadas vibrate specialized organs called tymbals, grouping their calls until the air becomes a mechanical wall of sound. At the water's edge, a white-lipped tree frog holds to a wet stem. It can reach about 14 centimeters, the largest native frog in Australia, but it still depends on moisture across its skin. A frog survives this hour by staying close to wet surfaces. A kingfisher survives differently. The azure kingfisher waits low over shaded fresh water, never far from creeks or pools, watching for fish, crustaceans, and aquatic insects beneath the glare. At last, the cassowary reaches the mud. It lowers its body and presses its underside into the wet substrate. The act looks like a collapse, but it is a strategy. The mud becomes a thermal sink, drawing heat from the body by conduction. For several minutes, the giant of the forest floor becomes almost as still as the roots around it. Then the coast begins to move. From beyond Cape Tribulation, air pushes inland from the Coral Sea. The first breeze bends palm hooks, tightens spider silk, and sends ripples through the stagnant pools. Leaves lift, ferns shiver. The heat breaks apart. The cassowary raises its head. Water runs from its feathers as it stands again, heavy but restored. Ahead, a freshwater creek cuts through the roots. The bird steps into the current. 1 foot plants. The inner claw bites against slick stone. The body steadies as water presses around its legs. The forest had turned against its giant. Now, with the wind returning, it gives the giant one more chance before darkness. The night the forest answers. The wind has returned the Southern Cassowary to movement. The cassowary stops in a clearing beneath the roots. For most of the day, its body has been a tool of movement. The keratinous cranial casque pushing through vines, the coarse feathers absorbing the rainforest's scratches, the scaled legs crossing mud, creek stones and tangled roots. Now that same body becomes a broadcast system. The head lowers, the chest expands. Then the sub-bass booming vocalization leaves the bird. Southern cassowaries have been recorded producing pulsed, booming notes down to about 32 Hz, close to the lower edge of human hearing. In a forest where leaves, trunks and vines block vision, low sound can move where the eye cannot. The boom rolls through the root floor and into the dark spaces between trees. The message is simple. This ground is occupied. Around the clearing, the forest shifts into night. A white-lipped tree frog inflates its vocal sac near the water and joins the growing wall of amphibian calls. A Papuan frogmouth waits in the dim canopy, its broken branch camouflage becoming nearly perfect as outlines vanish. Heat-sensitive pits along the jaws of pythons help them detect warm-blooded prey after light fails. Somewhere lower, a spotted-tailed quoll holds in cover, conserving what remains of the day's energy. Then the resident cassowary hears it. Not a call, not a frog, not water. A vibration. Something heavy enters the root system from beyond the established boundary. The resident lifts its head. The eyes widen in the thin lunar light. Through the fern wall, another shape separates from the blackness. An intruding male. The resident booms again, lower and closer. The warning should be enough. Direct conflict risks injury, blood loss, broken claws, torn skin. For an animal that has already spent the day crossing heat, mud and current, a fight is expensive. But the intruder keeps coming. Both birds step into the clearing. Their bodies angle sideways, measuring mass without contact. The prehistoric avian morphology that carried them through the Gondwana relic now becomes dangerous. The same legs that walk the maze prepare to strike it. The intruder moves first. A burst of black weight cuts across the clearing. The resident answers with an explosive leap, both legs driving forward in the air. The inner claws flash for less than a second. Impact folds through coarse feathers and muscle. Leaf litter erupts. Insects scatter from the strike zone as if the ground itself has cracked open. The fight is brief because it has to be. No predator arrives. No blood spectacle follows. The forest does not need drama. It needs the decision. The intruder breaks first, turning into the dark wall of understory. The resident follows, crashing through fern and vine, casque lowered, body reading a path it has memorized through years of survival. At the territorial edge, the intruder disappears. The resident slows. Back in the clearing, the cassowary stands with its beak open, breath heavy, body hot again from sudden violence. The same mud that saved it at midday now cools the air beneath its feet. The same roots that sheltered it at dawn open again behind it. The bird retreats into the strangler fig cavern. As the deep, moody blue shadows of the Daintree completely swallow the clearing, the primeval dinosaur bird vanishes into the pitch black, passing the mantle of survival to the apex hunters of the night. But across the continent, another ancient ecosystem undergoes an equally volatile shift under the cover of darkness.